We've all been to that place where we feel like we're not good enough, we're not reaching our full potential, we're not living life to the fullest, and feeling like what's the point? I've been there myself. Today's guest is my good friend, Coach Braydon I. He's an athlete, a content creator, fitness entrepreneur, community builder, host of the Blessed with Bray podcast, and overall just an epic human being. The main thing we discuss today are the 4 types of health: mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional, how you can thrive in all areas of life, and also how to optimize your training so that you're able to do it strong, fast, and pain-free, and be the healthiest, most functional, best version of yourself. At the end of this video, you're going to learn how to optimize all 4 areas of health so that you can be the best version of you, so that you can continue to pour into others, crush it in all areas of your life, and continue to forge yourself into the person you've always envisioned yourself becoming. Now, my mission is to inspire and empower 100 million people to become the happiest, healthiest, most fulfilled version of themselves. And my only ask of you today is that if you enjoy this video, if you find value in it, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and help me on my mission. Love you guys. Now enjoy this episode with Braydon I. How do you ground yourself, center yourself when shit hits the fan throughout your day in your life?
I mean, there's a lot of layers there, I think, in terms of how I can show up now. But to answer that question, currently, it's just being understanding I can't control everything, and this too shall pass, as our friend Noah would say, from like a philosophy mindset. Whether it's good or bad, it's gonna move. It's gonna pass. So I can't allow things I can't control to impact my current position because that's already in the past. Like we're already moving forward. Now we're doing this. I can't be stuck on this thing, taking away my energy from being present and showing up better for you, for your podcast, for this conversation. Can't allow past stuff to weigh me down.
Yeah, I love that. How have you conditioned your mind to quickly be able to switch from like getting annoyed, getting frustrated to just like, it is what it is, on to the next thing? Because that's something that I've struggled with. I know a lot of other people struggle with too, is just centering yourself, refocusing, and then like moving on to the next thing and not letting that past thing hold you down and hold you back from, creating forward momentum.
Yeah, it's easy for me to say in this context the answer I just gave,
Sure.
but like as I said, there's layers of work, mental work, inner work that allows me to show up in that way. And yeah, it just gets to, if we're gonna go like practical steps, in the moment, being able to just breathe, right? Because a spike of adrenaline, a spike of cortisol, of stress that gets sent when we have this moment of agitation or frustration, or someone honked us, or someone, cut us off, and that quick energy of like, things are here. What gets us back to down here in this equilibrium is our breath. So being able to practice that, and again, that's easier said than done. But I think people are too much in their heads, and they don't understand until they experience breathing more, how it just really downregulates us and allows us to be more grounded and present, to where we're not reacting from a aggressive state or a sympathetic state. And I think for me, it's like I've attached myself to a specific identity on how I want to show up, and I know when I'm in a heightened state that I don't show up as that version of myself. And I care what people think in the sense that I value providing value. That's something that I prioritize. So if I am not doing that and not showing up, that's going to I'm going to internalize that and create some guilt, some shame, and some more negative energy that I don't want in me. So in that moment in time, it's like I have this identity of self, of who I want to be, who I want to show up, and then here on the other side are the practical steps that allow me to get back to him. Versus when we're over here, we got monkey brain, we got agitated, we got all these different things that allow us to not show up as ourselves.
So you mentioned inner work there, and I want to touch on that. What does inner work mean for you? What are those things that you do to continue to do the inner work to bring out the best version of you?
Yeah, there's phases. I think to give an overlay of just like a sentence that I want people to lean into is understanding deeper levels of your consciousness, right? I think life is, especially in the current structure of society, is a constantly unlearning to learn, right? Like we get put, and I'm just going to contextualize this real quick. Like we get put in we call it a system, societal structure of an American dream of, get married, have kids, go to school, get the job. And then we're also sitting with our parents' belief systems, our parents, goals and dreams in some capacity. We get these limits placed on us in different capacities, and I think that colludes our ability to be super present in what actually is meaningful to us. So, as an overview, it's like, how can we go into deeper levels of consciousness to understand self? So we can start picking and choosing and dissecting our thoughts and feelings in the moment of what we're feeling drawn to. But the reality is, and I put myself in this box for a long time, I was numbing that understanding. Whether it was intentional or not intentional, it doesn't matter. The reality is, I couldn't be in a state of mind where I could really understand in the moment what I actually wanted. And that's still like a constant discovery over time of doing more of the inner work. But if I were to go back in time and look at the inner work for me, the biggest pillar is always health. Like, and this is how I also chalk up and connect myself to, like, if someone ever wrongs me, it's like they're unhealthy. Like that's my how I that's my in my DNA. It's how I look at everything. It's like this person needs help. Either they need some emotional support, they need to talk to someone, they need some mental work, they need community, they need physical health, they need to take care of uh, their health, and then spiritual health. They need to connect with a higher source. So for me, like that inner work is like, how can I be the healthiest version of myself? And then dissect those four pillars of what areas I need to work on. Where is my current growth? And I think it's easy to, I say easy, it's easier to lean into things that become more natural for yourself. So for me, that was fitness, like working out. It's like this is something that I don't have to rely on anyone else. I can just go and I developed, a better relationship with myself. I developed credibility with myself. I developed a sense of confidence, a sense of momentum in life. And that led to, having more confidence to be more vulnerable. Okay, now we got emotional health, and in that journey of the physical health, my own mental health issues, I developed a stronger sense of self and mental health. So I was more courageous and not living in fear and leaning into things, leaning into more challenges in life. And then through that, the vulnerability piece of emotional health, sharing, expressing my feelings, not holding things in, not creating space from other people. And this is a constant battle as a man in my own reality. But that's something I'm very conscious of and aware of. So I can dissect that in the moment, like, oh, I'm showing up in this way. Or I have a support system, which it comes within the emotional health as well. You get that support system by doing all those things. When you do the inner work, you find your people. It's been my discovery and my journey. And then spiritual health, my relationship to God is very new, and I'm leaning into that. But I've always believed in a higher power and that I am not the center of the world. And I think a lot of people live in that space, and then there's no judgment there. I think that's just a reality that we create, and that's why we get really triggered by other people. It's like, oh, this is everything's about us. And when you do that inner work, you realize that it's not about you, right? So then you create that freedom of not being triggered as much or not reacting impulsively because you've done the inner work. And I again, like it to me, it comes down to those four pillars and being able to dissect and understand where that is. And I think you get so much out of that when you go down that journey.
I love how you mentioned multiple areas of health too, because people think of health and they only bucket it in with your physical health, which is, arguably the most important thing. Because for me, when my life was the most out of whack, when I was kind of at my lowest, it was when I wasn't taking care of my physical health. And when you start to take care of your physical health, like you said, you start to build that confidence, you start to feel empowered, and then you start to be like, okay, I got the physical health part down. Now, okay, the mental health side of things. Then for me, it was emotional, and then it was spiritual. Tapping back into that. So, we had never really even talked about that before, but those are the four areas of health that I try to focus on as
Let's
well.
go.
But I'm curious, where does that journey of health begin for you in this, you know, infatuation with it and the realization that that's what's going to help you become the best version of you and also be able to pour into others so that they can do the same and create this domino effect?
So great question. I wore this shirt intentionally as someone who wants to be a beacon for men and people of the world in regards to mental health. My mental health was not in a good space for a long time before I moved here. Post college, I was living at home with my parents, kind of purposeless. I pushed off all big decisions my entire life and had a lot of shame about the person I was showing up was and didn't have a will to really live. And for a couple years, there was a stretch where every day at some capacity, I was plotting my death or thinking about my death and thinking about the repercussions of what that would look like for my family and imagining myself just driving and just turning a left, look like an accident, hit the median head on and just be over. Because at that point in my life, like I said, I wasn't proud. I wasn't grateful. I couldn't find that because I felt like I never was showing up in a way. And when you, as a man that needs to live within his purpose, and you're not leaning into that, and you're not leaning into that soul, that voice inside you that is telling you are meant to do a lot more with your life, it starts eating away. So the way the description kind of that I start describing is I was putting like chains on my body, like all these I was hiding from the world. And it just kept getting heavier and heavier and heavier to where I was just started sinking, into the water, and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't get myself above the water because everything was just pulling me down. And that created obviously a lot of negative energy in my life. And I was very unhealthy. I was very skinny fat. I'm sure hormones were terrible. I wasn't sleeping well, was eating terribly. And I can't dissect a specific moment in time, but basically, I what happened was I started just consuming a lot of just positive things. I always get back to my boy ET, the hip hop preacher,
Hell yeah.
and I every time I still listen to him speak, and it just reminds me. I almost like tear up because I just remember when I first heard, if and it was from the context of being successful. If you want to like be success or be gray as bad as you want to breathe. Like I was just like, damn, I want these things. And like I'm just not pushing and not putting myself out there. So what that looked like in that moment in time is, I was consuming all these different things, different podcasts, and just really changing my frame of how I looked at life. And I started working out. And I was consistent. I bought a workout program, started eating better. And just naturally through that process, my energy started to change. And yeah, it just something clicked for me. It was like, wow, like this changed my life so quickly. This is insane. Like everyone should have a piece of this. Like everyone should feel what I'm feeling right now because I couldn't find anything positive. And you know me as you see me now, I'm a very positive person. You can try your freaking best, but you're not gonna allow me to be negative about life. I'm always gonna be positive about life. But for a long time, that was nonsense to me. Like what? And it's not like I was never a person to really project out onto other people. I was just holding it all in here. And that's why I was getting so fucking heavy. And yeah, a switch was changed. And then at that point, I didn't really have a career anyway. So I was like, all right, let me go all in on this. This makes sense. And that started with the training certification and then just continue learning. Like I was still broke as hell. So I had to like learn on my own. And I'm proud that I was able to do that because it forced me to actually work and start consuming stuff. And I always felt like I had a knack to like see what made sense and like really relate and adapt to things. So it just, yeah, we've been on a journey ever since.
So you're not from Austin.
Nope.
You're from Indiana. So did that health journey that started in Indiana, correct?
Yeah.
What was it that brought you down here to Austin?
Yeah. I've talked about this a few different times. I think, well, environments are super important.
Yeah, yeah, I mean that's why I'm here.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I developed if I were to look at it like I just feel like I developed a certain identity. Like my family, I felt small, I was depressed around them. My college friends, same shit. And I felt like I created this version of myself. I don't feel like I know I created a version of myself of how people perceive me. And I felt that I couldn't expand and open up and allow more expansion into my life because I was like, I created all these weights. So in order to break free from the chains, I had to move across the country and start like I was literally telling people like I moved here New Year's Eve 2018. 2018. And I got here. It was New Year's Eve. That was 2017, sorry. And I was literally saying, this is a new state, new year, new me. I'm starting life fucking fresh. Didn't have a job yet, had some money saved up, and as you said, like that journey did start in Indiana, but it was still so elementary in terms of where I'm at today, obviously. But like even then, like I had no confidence in myself. Like I was working a manual labor job for 2 years before I moved here. And yeah, I felt like I wasn't gonna be able to be who I am today. Because I even like I went back recently for my brother's wedding, and I had my aunt. She's like, you're a completely different person." Because like now everyone's consuming my content and like listening to my podcast, which makes me happy because that's their way to connect with me. And I have always struggled to try to connect, and I try to show up in a certain way, and I've gotten better over time. It's challenging, it's been one of the bigger challenges of my life, and I take on that challenge because I want to challenge myself. I want where's my growth, but to fast forward, I needed a new space. That's simple as it is. And Austin is a special place with a lot of opportunity, with a lot of good people. And at that point, I didn't have that. I didn't know what that was. Everything I have now, I was dreaming about 5 years ago. And I'm like, what the hell is life now? Like, there's impossible for me not to have so much gratitude, no matter the struggle. And to message the people who are listening, if we dissect everything I already said, inner work. I was by myself for a long time. Like my first couple years here, like I was still hanging out with my college friends here and there, and I got a DWI. We can go down that journey, but that was my sign from above to get my shit together. And I was by myself for a year. It was really dark. I had like a second bout of rock bottom once I was living here. I was super broke. I was riding at I totaled my car when I got DWI. I was riding an electric scooter to work every single day. I had no money. Could barely afford to eat. And this is 4 years ago, and, like, I didn't have squats in my life or anything like that.
So that was when you were here in Austin.
Yeah, that was my second rock bottom. I shared that because, uh, it wasn't always smooth sailing as soon as I moved here. Like, I
Sure.
didn't have my people. I still had to do work because, again, at that point in time, I was not doing the work to better myself. And I have no judgment of people in my life, my friends, my past friends. If I see I just saw someone say, "He came to the gym. I haven't seen him in 5 years." I'm like, "Oh, what's up, dude? What's up, Mitch?" Like, that's cool. Like, I wanna see those people start coming here, and, like, that's my invitation. Like, my arms are open, but in order for you to grow in life, if people are holding you back, what it's not intentional. Like, they're living their life. They have different priorities. I got different priorities. I'm going this way, and I'm on this roller coaster. So I wanna find people that are gonna ride this roller coaster. You can still be on the theme park. We're still in the same theme park of life, but you're just not on this ride. So, like, moving and changing my environment was huge, but then I didn't change my internal environment of how I thought about myself. And then I changed my friend group environment of who I surrounded myself with. And then everything else just happens from there.
So the podcast, Blessed with Bray.
That's
So the last time we talked a couple months ago, you had mentioned you had been working really hard on program and the training and the coaching, but then you kind of put that on pause to start the podcast. And what I really admire about you is just like your ability to welcome in different seasons of your life and kind of keep the main priority and not be so like monkey brain and try to pour into a bunch of different buckets and you're only pouring into them like a quarter of the way and then they dry up, right? So I love how you're pouring into one thing and really building that positive momentum, creating those systems and keeping that going. So why did you decide to put the training on pause and go all in on the podcast right now?
Yeah, I had I've been sitting with some things as I talk about the soul. I think there's always these voices knocking at your door. Famous book by not famous book. Courage is Calling.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um I felt that I've done a good job of I just value this so much more, and it's hard for me to want to be on my phone. It's hard for me to want to create content online. It's really hard for me because and it's not that the resistance is I don't think it's negative. It just for me personally, it's a lot of energy, and I'm like I have this whether it's a sensitive nervous system or what. It's like I just want this. This was what charges me up. This conversation we're having right now, but I sat with a couple things. One being that if I want to have the impact that I feel that I can have in the world, I had to think bigger. I had to think bigger. And I think with that, we are within a war of information. And that especially as tech becomes even more just dominating how we're consuming information and energy. And I think we have so much power at the tip of our hands and so much responsibility that it is just like I was hiding from the world when I was depressed back in Indiana and not stepping into my power. I felt like I was hiding and not stepping into my power. My power being the capacity to spread good energy, healing energy to allow people to change their outlook on life and no matter where they're at in life. And that's something that's really connected to my soul. And I think the way we create world peace is it starts at inner peace on every single individual level across the world. Like you can be a protester if that's what you align with, go freaking protest. That's not my way of making change. My change starts with me and then be able to inspire other people to do the same. So for me, the podcast is a perfect platform for that because it allows for me to have conversations that are very therapeutic for myself. It's a great opportunity to connect with someone that I wanted to connect with, and it's very therapeutic for them. It allows them to have conversations that they may not be having in their life very much, and to get deeper on things, to really understand more about themselves. As I said earlier, really dissecting your deeper levels of consciousness, those things that we just don't think about, and to be able to use yeah, my platform and to build around that and lean into what is really charged. And that's like the I guess the greater answer too is like I am so conscious and present and constantly getting more aware of like the things that I want that I'm able to, okay, now this is moving. Now I'm going to shift my energies again, as you said, season. So if I'm going to do something, I want to do it right. And luckily I'm in a position where I can and have the freedom to be able to do that. But then it switch gears and I'm on to another thing. But it's all attached to the greater mission of play. There's this thing dangling right here. Okay, what avenues are allowing me to be fulfilled in the process and be able to have the impact that I want to have?
Mm, no, it's good. So with the podcast, you mentioned a couple times too, like the impact that you want to have, the impact that you know you can have, the person that you want to be, the person that you're becoming. So, talking in like the future tense, I think that's a thing, future tense,
Yep. Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
But how do you remain present and focused on the person that you are right now, but also stay, vision focused on the impact that you're trying to create, the person that you're trying to step into, and ultimately like the legacy that you want to leave in this world?
Yes. Before I answer that, something came up. As I said, like we have so much power with technology now and information that I think a lot of good people don't lead into creating content. Maybe this is me projecting my own bias because they're so happy and fulfilled already. They don't need to do this. But the problem with that is it allows space for the wrong and the bad. And I don't like putting a label on people, but there's people who just like they're less in tune with themselves and they're operating on a different wavelength and they're not spreading the type of energy that we want in the world. It's more energy of separation versus love. And that happens on fitness space, like business, finance, travel, everything. There's people who just are not heart-centered leaders that are impacting our global a global scale like that's not healthy. So it's a message to anyone's on the fence of wanting to be a creator. Like I had this conversation with Matt Troy. It's like we need more good creators out in the space.
100%.
But to answer your question, it's just there's a lot of just trust. I think I say as a man, but I think it's very masculine to want to control things and wanted to control where things are going. Because me, like I have, like I said, this impact or greater mission that I want, but I'm also unattached to it. I'm attached to being super present and listening to what my body is telling me, my soul is telling me that I want in this moment. So I can have all these dreams and goals and things of that nature, but it may not align with my current self in the future. It may align with my current self right now, or it does, and I'm going to lean into that. But if it gets to it gets to a time where it's I don't know if I like this, then okay, then we change gears. I think people get too dogmatic about things. I'm a vegan. I'm a vegan. Everything else is terrible. Or I'm a carnivore. Everything else is terrible. And this again, no judgment. I'm just saying we get into this space. I see it all the time. It's like we want to like own these things. Like there's no reason to want to own these things. Like like ownership is an illusion to me. Like this is a part of you of your current self, but your future self may not be aligned with that. And being okay with adapting and evolving because that's what we are. We're the most adapting species ever to walk this freaking planet. So understanding that we can adapt to anything. So I think it's important to have a consistent like self-check with yourself, self-assess. It's like, okay, is this something I truly want? I've talked with a lot of different athletes that, they want to be the best. They want to go all in, on the work. And it's like, I respect that. Like that process, that journey is freaking beautiful. But if it gets to a point where, separation gets created through where you're sacrificing your relationships now, you're sacrificing your business, then okay, now we got to reevaluate that thing. Because that happened to me too. Because I got into Hyrox and I did pretty well. I was like, oh, I can let's really tap into this. And then that energy of wanting to this like, oh, let's fucking go like in the wrong way of like pushing people away. Like I don't have time. I need to focus on this. One, that's not who I am. I don't want to push people away. I want to be someone who brings good vibes to people's life. And then two, like that's not real. Like I don't like being Like you can be a pro at many different things, and it takes a lot of work to be the best. But I'm gonna sacrifice so much of what I don't want. Like I want to have strong relationships. I want to have strong community. I want to, have a good business, a successful business that creates more freedoms. But if I go all in on this pillar, then I'm gonna sacrifice in the wrong thing. So it's just constant self evaluation. That's okay. That could be a season. Like this year, this is the year I'm gonna train like I'm gonna be the best. Everything else. I'm gonna sacrifice. I don't care. No dating, no business. I'm not making money, but this is gonna fill me up right now. But then we get to the year down the road, it's like, oh, maybe this doesn't connect with me anymore. Time to switch gears.
It's like you can have everything, you just can't have it all at once.
Can't have it all at once.
Mm.
Mm.
I realized that myself too. I ran 3 marathons in a year, and I just really started to breaking my body down, and I was like, it was just this cycle of okay, train for one marathon, 1 week off, like right into the next prep. Marathon 1 week off, right into the next prep, and I was like so proud of like the work that I was doing, and like I wasn't hanging out with like a lot of people. I was very much just like very hyper focused on literally just like running and then like creating content and doing this, that, and the other. And it was just like the cycle. And then finally, like not just my body, but my mind started just to be like, yo, we got to break this cycle. Right. And then among that, I was like, I need to change my environment. So after this past marathon that I ran, like my knees just started to really tell me I needed a break. My mind was just like I couldn't focus on things. I was like craving more human connection. I felt like I was just getting like really stale with the content that I was creating. And ultimately, when you get to that point, it's like your energy is like starting to get depleted. It's like, what do you need to do? You need to shift gears a little bit. You need to, kind of immerse yourselves in different environments with different people. You know, find different activities to do. Go play hacky sack, disc golf, like work, do a different kind of workout. Like that's how you're able to like start to really like it's good for the brain, right? Like the neuroplasticity and all that kind of
Yep.
stuff. So what was the point for you where you realized like, okay, this Hyrox thing is something that I'm pretty good at. And like as we get older, is like, we kind of have that window of like our athletic potential in certain sports and things like that. So for you, what was that point of like, okay, I can still like train for this, but like I'm not gonna like dedicate my whole life to it at this point.
Yeah, so in May of 2021 was my first Hyrox, and then do
And for a lot of people listening, like, can you explain what Hyrox is too?
yeah, a short answer is a functional CrossFit Games. There's 8 runs, 8 workouts. Everyone does the same thing. There's different weights for different divisions. There's no weight classes, but there's like a pro and regular division, and now they have mixed doubles. They have doubles. They have relays. But yeah, it's a mix of half of it's running. It was designed in Germany, so it's all in like kilometers and meters. I love it, and everyone that I put onto it has loved it. Uh, but I would say, yeah, May of 2021. And then what's crazy at that point, like I was not a runner at all. I had so much pain. Like I couldn't run. Like I got to 3 miles and I would just my left knee, left hip, shin splints on both sides. It's funny, in May 2020 for that Hyrox, I was taped up at easy tape because I had shin splints so bad. And then obviously you see I'm a runner now and I had no pain. That's another conversation, being pain free. But I locked in. I was like, damn, there is so much level of growth here that I can have. Like, because what happened was I competed and I got my ass kicked. To be frank, but how I felt afterwards was insane. And real quick, I want to harp on this, and it's something I talk about. I mentioned earlier that we're kind of like relearning things as we go through life, and there's a level of like when it comes to mental health in your mind, of finding these keys like through challenges that unlock the door. We unlock that door. Okay, this now we feel safe to step into this, but we have so many doors that block us from being able to be our full self. And whether it's caring what people think, whatever the case, we have these doors. And what I found with competition, it was like, I don't need no key. I'm just going to break this door down. And that was that type of energy, that very primal alpha, this masculine energy running through me. And I was like, damn, this feels so good. I haven't felt this since my entire life. I mean, at some capacity, I was a really good wrestler growing up, but like never had this much energy running through me. And I like immediately dialed in my training, started creating programs around it, dialed in, just even growing on looking at my business stuff too. and how I was everything I just had was more charged up. And this is why I'm very passionate about getting more people to compete, because I think it really impacts us in a very positive way if you have a healthy relationship with it. Fast forward 5 months, I end up winning Hyrox LA, and I was pretty much on my high horse. That was obviously a quick turnaround in 5 months to be able to go where I was to how I finished.
What was your time, by the way, when you won?
My time was a 107. So that
Solid.
was a pretty actually slower time
Yeah.
now, but I'm obviously a better athlete now. That was still a new sport.
Mhm.
Top guys for that division now is usually around like an hour and five.
Yeah, who's the record holder? Hunter
Hunter
McIntyre?
McIntyre, yeah. But yeah, then fast forward, I got addicted and I did DECA Fit, qualified for world championships for that. Uh, did another Hyrox. No, I did Hyrox doubles, and me and CJ crushed that. And I just like was, and then I started training for the Austin Marathon, and that's where my thing started going south. Because I didn't really train for that, and I showed up and did the marathon and got a 7:22 pace, and I was with the 3 hour guys until like mile 21 and just blew up. And I went to go run a little bit too soon after, and I got some bursitis in my knee. I couldn't train. I was a new Hyrox Pro for the first time that April, and I couldn't run at all, and I just felt weak. I like skinny. I felt like I was losing my muscle. I felt weak, and I went to that Hyrox Pro and just got my butt kicked. Like I came out hot. My buddy Robin, you just saw, was in that heat. I was in first until he got to the sleds. I ended up finishing, I think, last in the whole heat. I just got wrecked, and that hit me here. I got a reality check because that training prior to that, I was so locked in, and like I noticed myself pushing people away. I was like, I don't have time. Like, we're a very community gym. People like to talk, and I'm just like, I don't have time for this. And like that creates perceptions in people's life. And again, I care about value. It's not that like when you say I care what people think, I do because I care. Like I want to offer value to people, and I'm not offering value. I'm hiding away my power. My gift is the energy that I bring to the world. So how am I going to hide this away? And this is where, to answer your podcast question, it's a scenario where I felt that I'm like, oh wow, this is not how I want to show up. Um, and yeah, fast forward some more. Like I did bad there. I took some time off, did some building, and then we were doing the 500-pound, 5-minute deadlift like goal. And then yeah, I went on a road trip with Yash. I got a 505 right before then, and then through still training and running while I was on the trip. Not a whole lot. I tested my mile in Utah, and like my body just broke down. Like I had this immediate like allergic reaction and couldn't stop sneezing. And real quick, just like what happened was like my body got traumatized, and it was already under stress just from how I was eating on the trip, how I was sleeping on the trip, and combine that with the last 2 years of this very performance driven box versus building and healing box, and it just got, my adrenals were shot. I got back from the trip, and 5 other times I would go run, and my body would just like a couple times broke out in hives. My throat swelled up, which can be scary. And then other times were just allergic reactions. Did doubles with CJ again, and immediately afterwards I just started like sneezing and stuff. So through talking to a neuro coach and some other people, like my adrenals were just shot, and my body was holding on to this trauma that I created from running. And running has changed my life to that point now in the past 2 years. Like my mental health has got so much better because I was able to run. And I lost that rock, started getting pretty down, and started realizing that my priorities needed to evolve. That this idea of being, I still want to be the best athlete, best functional athlete, best hybrid athlete, but that's my own journey. It has nothing to do with awards and winning competitions. But I needed to make a shift. In this past 4 or 5 months, I've been strictly on healing. I hired a coach, been working with a coach, and feel better than ever. And I'm excited, as I was expressing to you earlier, to get kind of back into that energy, just a little bit taste for a competition tomorrow. But yeah, to package that up, it gets back to what I said earlier. You need to, how do you want to show up in the world? Who do you want to be? What does your higher self look like? Like really get clear on what that person is, because you will create it. The more you think about it, the more you lean into it, you will create that version of yourself, and start closing that separation of who you want to be and who you actually are. And I would show up in a way that isn't me. Like I know the energy that I bring to the world. I can't. You've even seen me the last trip, right? You were here. I get into my head, and I start getting this energy of like, yo, I start pushing people away. It's very natural for me to want to do that. It's very natural for people to want to do that. I see that, but we're not meant to be alone. We're not meant to be on this one track thing. There is levels of growth that can be there when you're training and you're locked in on a mission. There's so much growth there, but that can't be the 80% of your life. That's a 20% type thing.
Right, yeah, you can be there, but you can't live there.
Yep.
I was thinking about this, like, this concept of seasons of life keeps coming back to me, right? Because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
played football in college. We weren't in season 12 months out of the year,
yeah, yeah.
right? Like, we had a 3-month season. You take a month and a half postseason to let the body recover and get back to baseline. And then it's like, okay, what are the things I need to work on in the off season? Then you have preseason
Mhm.
before you get back into the season. If you just try to constantly live in this season of just going all the time, whether it's physical, mental, whatever else it is, like you have to prioritize your life into various seasons,
Yep.
and
Be intentional.
yeah, you got to be intentional.
But like have it this bird's eye view of okay, this is my year. And, even with work projects, like I'm about to be traveling for a lot this next part of the year. And that's a season where I'm just like, I just want to I need to relax. I need to recharge. I need to rebuild and understanding it's probably different in the 9 to 5 world, but I think you still can structure and be intentional with that on a day-to-day basis. And yeah, I think it's very easy for our society and most people to get on that go, go, go mentality. I can connect that and correlate that with technology and like having things at our fingertips. It creates this internal clock that we need to go, go, go. And that I see it with athletes too. I used to joke for the longest time that I can outwork any athlete here, but they all train more than me. Like I use that as a joke, but like it's a reality at some level when people like we train so much and push our bodies so much. And I believe in that at scale, at some like it's gotta be balanced. You gotta recover hard too.
That's interesting there too, because I know a lot of people, myself included, get into I'm like, I gotta be like crushing myself every time I go to the gym. I gotta be in there for like, at least like 60 to 90 minutes or like the workout,
Ego is our friend, but it can be our enemy too.
isn't that's the damn truth, man. So you mentioned that you had been working with a coach, and I see it with you. I was talking to Harry, I was talking to Matt, I was talking to a lot of people who like some of the most like functional, like most athletic fit people that I know, and workouts aren't as long, aren't as frequent than somebody else who's in there just constantly crushing themselves. So were you ever at that point where you were just like overdoing it, and then what have you learned to ultimately like shift to be like more efficient and more intentional with the training that you do?
Yeah, I think pain is a great learning tool. Pain in the sense of like creating injuries and things of that nature. So my younger self, like when I first got into working out, I just bought a bodybuilding program. If you guys remember Vince Sanity,
I do.
yeah, I bought that guy's program, a pretty basic bodybuilding program. But at that point, I had a lot of muscle imbalances from just previous injuries in my life, and just was, yeah, not feeling good. I'm like, damn, like this didn't make sense to me that I'm pushing and like this is supposed to make me feel good. I should be leaving my workout feeling good, not feeling like shit, and not having more pain in my life because that pain that your body holds on to is again, if we're talking about your higher self and allowing you to show up in a certain way, it's taking away your energy. And then people normalize it because pain is a theme in our culture. No pain, no gain.
Right.
My grandparents got pain. My parents got pain. Pain is just a reality that we all face. I don't like that. Like I want to switch that mindset that we have so much control to be able to alter our life, to be able to allow our body to function the way it needs to function.
Mm.
And I'm guilty of it too. Like I said, it's been a learning process, and we get into whether it's performance trap or goals driven trap, and feeling like we don't have time to dedicate towards certain things, and that creates our body's inability to heal. And the reality, the cool thing is our body is so powerful that it can heal. We just gotta give it the tools to heal. So for me, it's early on, like I said in my career, I had these injuries, but like I just wanted to switch that mindset, and I got into more functionality because it just made sense. Like if I'm gonna train, it should like carry over to my life and how I live my life as an animal, as a thing walking this planet, and that just developed more curiosity, understanding, and learning from my own pain points. So like I said, like when I started running 2 years ago, like I had all these pains and I wanted to run. I wanted to be able to run. Like I was drawn to running and I enjoyed running, but it was not enjoyable.
Mm.
So why am I going to continue to do this? Because that's what you do. You just go run and you push through it. Again, there's always a level there, like a mental of why that's beneficial. But if it's not allowing you to evolve and adapt because your body's constantly in this flight or flight position and it's just breaking down more and more and more, eventually that's how an injury happens. An injury is very rarely a freak accident. They happen. The injuries happen over constant work and work and work and work of not allowing the body to actually grow and get stronger, and it becomes, whether it's a small little stress fracture and then we just keep going and keep going and keep going, and then bam, now we have a break, or now we have a some type of injury. And it's, the body will give you signs always. It says that your soul is talking to you on a mental and emotional level, your physical level, your body's talking to you too. Like, hey, this doesn't feel right. So get more curious about, okay, how can I make this feel better? And like was from I guess a driven goal of just wanting to be healthy, back to the being healthy, like wanting to be and feel your best. So if your MO is like, I want to be the healthiest version of myself, I don't say I want to be the best. I want to be the healthiest version of myself, because that creates everything else. So if I'm thinking it from that lens, then I'm gonna go down these avenues. But man, it's crazy. Like there's always a level that you just gotta learn by hurting yourself. Like I see that all the time. I'm trying to be the person to help people think from more of a preventive standpoint. But the reality is, like, that's another version of what our society has created with, pharmaceutical drugs and things of that nature. We're
Oh,
very reactionary. So it happens. I guess there's a correlation. What happens? We're conditioned to do the same thing with our body. We're reactionary. These things come in. Oh, bam. So I was explaining, your body talks to you. That is a reactionary standpoint. I mean, that's still a level of consciousness and action that people still don't lean into. They don't listen to that thing. But on the other level, it's like, okay, let's look at, we mentioned an athlete, your training schedule. Let's go to professional athletes. What do you think they're doing for their bodies consistently? Like, they're going down all these different avenues of less sexy stuff to allow their body to function better, to move better, to recover better. But people are so attached to this like high level, high intensity, get after it type energy. And sure, there is benefit there. But if that's what you're doing every single time, your body's just going to start deteriorating over time. And it just doesn't allow for a very fruitful way to build your body. And I see it with other people too, with a couple of my clients in this training, and this, like, their internal awareness of like intensity. Intensity is a metric that I think is the most powerful one, but it's the most overused one. It's you don't need, not every single rep, not every single movement exercise needs to be like, I need to feel this. Like, people are like trying to feel us or attach to a certain thing. I need to be exhausted. I need to be fatigued. It needs to be burning. Like, those are levels of growth there for sure. But again, if we're on the 80-20 rule, like 80% it needs to be more like we're just going through the motions and movement and allowing the body to feel into that. Because having a better mind muscle connection is more important than you being able to move heavy weights. Like, that carries over more to your life. That carries over more to your body, being able to have healthy tissues to recover and have good blood flow. But if you're always in this push, push, push mindset, then yes, there's more risk of injury. But two, you're just not going to be as good as everyone's athlete to me, but you're not gonna be as good as an athlete because you're not allowing your body to actually grow.
mm. So what does your training look like now on a weekly basis?
Yeah, I mean, I'm following, shout out my boy Gunther, Klaus, his program right now, and it's very, so I consider myself to be somewhat of an expert in mobility on the side of.
The MoBULL Warrior.
Exactly. But I'm still limited in terms of that too. So I consider myself to be really good at improving range of motion and having good, as I shared, mind to muscle connection, and just body awareness and good blood flow, and be able to keep what you got type of thing and not lose range of motion over time. Gunther had a skill set that I wanted to acquire that understands more joint positioning and breathing and gait. And I have just, yeah, my body was craving it. I knew I obviously hired him for a reason, and it's been just a great journey because I can feel my body healing itself. It's moving oxygen throughout my body a lot better. And a lot of people, especially athletes, our rib cage is a big thing. And rib cage biomechanics is something that's becoming a very popular topic in the fitness space right now. And there's for good reason, because it's very pliable and it moves very easily, but also can move in the right position very easily. But if our bodies, like this gets back to, yeah, if you can be as strong as you want, but if your body's not moving oxygen very well throughout your body and good blood flow and nutrients, then you're not going to be able to output very well. Like I see some of the strongest, biggest dudes, and they go and compete and they get wrecked because their body just can't breathe, can't move. They're so tense. So being able to be more flowy into it. So to answer your question, uh, I move every day. Like I bike, I don't drive. I don't want to ever drive again. So I'm constantly getting zone two from that sense. I am heavy focused, like I said, gait and joint positioning and allowing my body to heal. But after this block of training, I'm gonna be traveling a lot, so I'm gonna lean more on just doing more. It's kind of the program I'm creating too, just hyper level focus on conditioning and and maintaining my strength in that process. As we said earlier, we can't have it all. So what I'm trying to really fine tune is the level of like I have my three pillars: strong, fast, and pain free. So if I'm focused on fast, which I categorize that with conditioning, and that's recovering fast too, that's my hyper focus. But I want to maintain my mobility in that journey, and then maintain my strength in that journey. But all my juice is going into this. So anything that has intensity attached to it is going to this. Everything else is there's no high intensity there.
So on a given day, are you doing a little bit of everything right now? So with his programming, or is it like there's more focused on each day? And you can tell I'm just curious about this kind of stuff,
Yeah,
man. I
yeah,
come to
yeah,
Austin, I love seeing how everybody's trained. I'm constantly like observing
for
how
sure.
everybody's trying to be, move weight as functional as possible, and yeah, I'm really learning a lot from everybody. So yeah, I'm really just curious because I think a lot of people listening too, it's like, all right, well, I have a strength day and then I have a conditioning day and then I have like, two mobility days. So yeah, really just curious where you're at there.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm learning how he does it because I have my own ways of programming things and how like here's an end goal, here's how I reverse engineer and categorize things. But I have a workout program 6 days a week, and he co-created this with me. And Sunday, I always have Sunday just as I label it, even with all my clients, it's called restorative day. That can be whatever that you want. Like that can look in the shape of sauna and ice. That can look in the shape of going for a walk or bike ride. That can look like sitting on the couch all freaking day. Like it's just restorative, whatever you feel called to do. My current block is built, and this is similar how I would create my mobile fast program is I have 2 development days, 2 stimulation days, and 2 recovery days. And those are going to take shape in different forms. It's not quite what I'm doing now, but that's what I have programmed for my clients right now. But I do have 2 development days, and the 2 development days are built around running. So I have a track workout and I just went for a run, a tempo run. Actually, ended up just doing zone two the whole run because the competition tomorrow. But typically it's a tempo run, and I'm slowly building on that. And that's another just context for everyone. Like people tend to change up the programming too much. One, they tend to increase volume way too quick as well. Like our body does not need much to adapt. Like it does not. Like you can do a chest press like literally 50% less than whatever weight that you think you want to do and still get growth if you consistently do it. Like it's just and obviously you can play with different tempos and time under tension, things of that nature. But again, we always want to go past that line. I always look at that line, the anaerobic threshold for running, or it's the same thing with training too. We just want to push over. When if you just flirt with that threshold a little bit more and play with that, understood that, you would grow a lot more efficiently. So those 2 days, and then I am yeah, I think the other 4 days are kind of a full body mix of everything, full of mobility and strength. Um, but if I was to look at how I categorize I want to reverse engineer strength, fast, and pain free in all of my programs. One just has a heavier focus, like I said, on intensity. The other two are more maintaining.
Mm.
And I always want to have like I have this one mobility day that is one of my favorite workouts to do and program for people, and that is consistent across every program. You're always going to do this mobility day, and then usually there's another one on top of that, depending on what the focus is at that time. But I will say so. There's designated days of mobility, and when people hear mobility, they're thinking yoga. I'm doing a little prep work. Nah, that's not what these are. These are still loaded movements that you're going through. You're getting still stimulation, and you can build strength here. especially if you're entering new domains of where range of motion. And then you're still doing mobility prep on the actual strength days, or even on my track days. I'm doing some type of prep work to get my body in the right position to perform that day.
What are your favorite modalities for recovery? Like, how do you train hard? How do you maintain being pain free? Kind of that next portion of it, being pain free, recovering, so that you're able to keep showing up.
Yeah, I think number one, I always say blood flow. So how can I create more blood flow in my body? Uh, One is incorporating breath work with mobility flows. So I have a 15-minute mobility flow. I'm actually going to start doing a live thing here on the turf every morning, and I want to fill that turf up. But I'm going
That
to wait till I get back from my trip. But uh, yeah, I think it's very powerful and intentional. It's one of those simple things, but it's so great at like getting blood to move throughout your body, but also at the same time keep what you got, because that's kind of the thing that happens with the strength training is like you start losing range of motion. But if you maintain that while you're building strength, you're in a good spot and less risk of injury. Outside of that, obviously contrast therapy is a big one. I haven't been icing. I've been icing actually a little bit. I kind of go I don't go as consistent with it sometimes. I think it's not necessary as much. I personally feel like it gets a little bit overused.
I think it's more of a mental thing for a lot of people too.
So I do a dunk in the morning, and that's I love. I just quick 5 seconds, boom, full dunk, and that's my favorite. One of my favorite things to do. But outside of sitting, like today, like I felt like my legs needed it, so I got in. So it's more again listening to what my body needs. If I'm feeling good, I don't feel like I need to do the ice. And I'm in Texas heat like during the summer, so I don't typically do the sauna either. But I will like on a Sunday day, like a restorative day, then I'll get sun because that's gonna help get my blood flow, and I'm also preserving my body, like, and allowing I'm not working it at all. But when you're in the sauna, your heart rate's still going to spike, and you're going to start moving blood a lot more. That'll be the big ones, But okay, well, I'm sorry. The biggest one is sleep.
Hmm.
It always boils down to sleep, and I I always tell everyone if you can start prioritizing that, that's going to change your life. It will literally change your life. And that remember it was on CJ's podcast like 3 years ago. And he's like, if you were your younger self at 20, like what would you say? And I was like, it's sleep. Like prioritize that, make that really good. As someone who struggled with sleep for a long time and still go through waves of that. Not I guess waves of that, but waves of it of happening when I know I'm overtraining a little bit too much, then my sleep will be impacted. So that's why I love the Whoop. My body will tell me, he's like, yo, dude, you need to dial it back a little bit, prioritize, maybe sacrifice the need to do this specific workout today so you can get better night of sleep. Because if you don't sleep over time, like again, back to producing results, not going to get it. Back to being able to show up as your best self, not going to have it. Or back to being not able to digest life and getting really triggered, that's usually your nervous system is taxed, and sleep is the biggest connector to that. So the three: mobility, sleep, and then contrast therapy.
Love that.
And I think real quick, I think with that, attack problems as they come. Don't push them off.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to like I like the preventive space, but not everyone's there yet and
Sure.
have the knowledge base. But your body will talk, and I see too many people that still push off, and especially when you're young. It's like I'll be fine, and you will be fine most likely, but there's a level of like your body still is holding on to that, and that's creating problems that you may not be consciously aware of because you normalize it,
Mm.
but it is creating problems because your body doesn't want to have pain. It's disease.
Well, yeah, well, I think there's all like, we look at our parents too, and like it's like, oh, once you get to 40 or 50 or whatever else it is, right? You're like your body's just gonna break down. It's like, so use it while you have it, right? And it's like, well, what if they would have just there wasn't as many resources like readily available for us now that like we have, and just leaning into our curiosity of like, okay, I want to do this as long as I possibly can.
Exactly.
I want to be running hill sprints when I'm 75, when I'm 80. Like I
Exactly.
want to do this as long as possible. So it's more so like we have to realize like no, like we can get better as we age. We can do this as long as possible, but it's you got to take care of it now. You might not be feeling it now at this point, but it's like you keep neglecting that kind of stuff. What's that going to look like in 5, 10, 15, 20 years?
Yep. And I'm seeing this shift happening because as you said, there is more information and people are educating themselves and being more curious. And it takes time for things to happen on a big scale. We live in a bubble here clearly, but it will happen eventually as people become more educated and understand their bodies. But it's just crazy how culture creates this. Like we just normalize it because that's just what we know. You're gonna go down this path. You're gonna get old. You're gonna die. But I'm like, I'm gonna be doing this in my 90s, yo. Like
Yes,
I'm gonna do
sir.
everything in my power to make sure I can do this as long as possible.
100%. Dude, so I mean, every time I talk to you, I'm just so energized. Like we have a great energy exchange. I love and admire and appreciate the energy that you bring to this community over here at Squatch
Appreciate
on Instagram, on social media, and then just every time I'm with you, man.
it.
Like it's so genuine, it's so authentic, and like I feed off of your positive energy. I'm curious, of everything that you have going on in your life, you got this trip coming up, you've been going in on the podcast, competing. What is one thing that excites you the most?
Mm. Hmm. It's hard for me to pinpoint the one. I I feel that the thing I'm most excited about that we haven't talked about is men in the arena. I think if I'm gonna boil down my probably greatest purpose that what I can create in my legacy is creating more male leaders. Why am I excited about that? And to describe what that male leader looks like and how he shows up in the world, he is the captain of the ship. He is leading his community, his tribe. He is communicative. He is vulnerable. He is able to allow emotions and feelings to run through him. He's able to tap into that alpha energy and lead and protect and inspire others around him to do the same. And obviously, that takes shape in different forms, and it'd be a whole other conversation to dive into why this is so necessary. But if I was to boil it down to my life and how it's been so impactful for me to be a man of purpose and to do all those things that I just shared, it just allows me to be so fulfilled. Like I am not rich by any means, but I am rich as fuck in everything else that doesn't attach itself to money. And that's because of all those other things. And I have a lot of conversations with so many different female friends, and there's just slim pickings in men who are tapped into that. And there's a conditional cultural thing that's happened in corporate America and all these different things that allowed us to get out of tune with that. Um, and I just think there's a big need. So I'm super excited because I just been planting seeds in many different men's minds of who would want to get involved with it. And I'd love to have a conversation with you off the podcast about it. And it's really, I see it as a supportive group for men to be leaders and help them find the purpose and find connections and resources to assist in that, whether it's personally connecting with specific leaders or whether it's um, personally connecting with people that they can help and things of that nature. And yeah, I think that's definitely that's the first thing that came up for me because it's cool how it's come kind of full circle back in my life. It's something that Ross and Yash and our buddy Brian started a few years ago, just after COVID, and it didn't fit right in that time of my life. And timing is an important thing, and that's like you talk about not being attached to certain things. You can think, oh, this is a failure. Why would I come back to this? But now it's authentic. Now it feels really right and the right time to lean into it.
Hmm. Love that, bro. My last question for you is, this is the Pure Ambition podcast. When you hear those words together, pure ambition, what does that mean to you and how does it apply to your daily life?
Pure ambition. So, if I were to dissect the two words, pure, I think is wholesome, um, untethered. And then I've attached that to the untethered soul and pure, and when attach that to ambition, I guess the phrase that comes up with for me is like not living up to your full potential. So pure ambition is when you're in hyper alignment with yourself and leaving and leading into your own purpose and being hungry, for more, which is not bad because I think we should always be grateful for where you're at. But if you stop growing and stop evolving and stop changing and stop seeking out different things, then you're just going to be less fulfilled and not get the things that you may want in your life. Because if we're looking back to the future tense thing, then that's okay to want more because that future self is going to want something different than you want now. So wanting more is just a part of the process. Don't have shame around that, but also be grateful in the moment, be pure, be whole, that this is that you're making the right choices and trust in that.
just honoring your mission, and just showing up as the best version of you, with a purpose, with intention. So that's beautifully put. I love that. Dude, this has been an absolutely incredible conversation.
Absolutely.
I'm super energized. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I'm glad we were able to wait and do this in person.
Is this your first podcast technically as a Austinite?
As an Austinite, this is. Yeah, dude. I had
It was had to be,
it was- bro. I got here. I was like, "Who's the first person I want to interview?" I said, "I got to talk to Bray."
Let's
Just
go.
because I admire the man that you are. I admire your vulnerability, just the way that you show up each and every day. Your honesty, your integrity, and just the way that you honor your mission. So, just want to thank you for the person that you are, for having this
Appreciate it, man.
conversation today. If people want to check out more of your stuff, where can they find you?
Coach Bray everywhere.
Coach Bray, baby.
Coach Bray everywhere. I appreciate you, man. Really appreciate you.
Thank you, brother.
Shoo! Stay blessed.
Ambition Podcast. Please leave a rating and review on the platform that you are listening, as it helps the show grow so that we can reach more people with the intent of empowering others to become the best versions of themselves and live a life base for workouts, recipes, routines, and a community ready to help you thrive.